Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. And if your eyes are a goggle at the size of this book, I don't blame you. I feel like it requires some boxing announcement. Coming into this corner at 1,474 pages, we have A Suitable Boy. Now, this was not a book that I read at a single sitting, obviously. It isn't even a book that I read over a month. It was a book that I read over a period of months, and if you can believe it, I carried this book with me to New Zealand from Europe, finished most of it in New Zealand, came back and finished it here, and read it along with a couple friends, which is usually the best way to get through a very large book. Although I think there is a certain pleasure in reading a book like this by yourself. I think you can gain a lot, as you can from reading any book, by reading it with others. When I think about this book, when I speak to people about it, the easiest analogy, the first book I reach back to is War and Peace, not only because of the size and the scope, but because of the deceptive title. Right? War and Peace. Is this going to be a book about Napoleon's war with Russia? Well, yes. However, there's several love stories running through it. You wouldn't know that from the title. So, if I see A Suitable Boy, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a book about a courtship. Except, that's just a disguise for a story about India. This book is about India, really and truly. Yes, there is a through line, but I think about it as a thread that Seth starts the book and ends the book with, so there's coherence there. But he uses that thread to weave and hang on so many other narratives about this wonderful old country that's had a lot of recent challenges. Whether that's partition, if you're not familiar, partition goes back to the time when India became formally independent, but there was a movement and a decision that the Indian people made to separate from Pakistan, which would become a Muslim state, and this would make India de facto a Hindu state, although let's say not officially a Hindu state, but just let's say a majority Hindu state, whereas Pakistan would be, let's say, this actual Muslim country. So the problems behind partition, the book then goes deeper into these divides between Hindu and Muslim in the country, and we get to see inside some Hindu festivals, which those of us who, even like myself, I grew up knowing that Hinduism existed in Singapore. It's got a significant presence, but not necessarily delving into it. I was only, let's say, superficially aware that these festivals were going on. I got to learn a little bit more about them in this text. We learn about courtship rituals. You get to see a arranged marriage, the mechanism of it play out, and keeping in mind that it wasn't a sure thing. So I think those of us who are outside of this society think, oh, once the wheels are on the arranged marriage track, it's just going to keep going. And that's clearly not the case. The female still here has a lot of agency in terms of whether she's going to go along with this match. Everyone needs to be happy with it. And this includes siblings as well. So it isn't just mom and dad, it has to be siblings. And yet the person can still make a decision even if the siblings aren't happy, even if the mother's not happy. I'm not saying that happens. There's no spoilers in anything I've said. But it's not clear who of the candidates that Lata, our main character, and I would say main character loosely because there's lots of characters, but our main character in regards to the title, A Suitable Boy, what way she's going to go. We also get lots of insights into family lives. In fact, the beginning of the book, you're when you look at it, you think, what is going to go on here? Because this is the sort of thing you see in the beginning of books of history. But there's family trees. But it's to help you keep track of the different families that you're going to go into, because Seth, in different parts of the book, changes perspective. So it's still a third-person omniscient narrator, but we're going to different families, we're going to different locales, we're going to different parts of India, and we're going through their stories. And it's just such a pleasure to read. The intricacy with which he discusses certain areas makes you feel immersed in this world. For example, at one point, one of the characters has had a lot of problems breathing, and it goes into a question of, okay, well, what's really wrong? A doctor comes on the scene, sort of explains things, they try to diagnose, but it gets fairly deep medically. But you think, okay, this isn't a book about medical science. But the author displays so much virtuosity in so many different topics, whether it's music or medical things or cricket or government policy or the intricacies of a political campaign or the challenges of a workplace and trying to get the respect of your workers and having an entrepreneurial spirit. And all of these things read as if they are real points of focus in the book. But what's really happening is the author just has a very rich and bold tapestry with which he's telling his story. So it doesn't just end up being a suitable boy. And in a sense, that would be a quibble I would have with Seth, is that War and Peace works because you are tricking people into a much larger human story by giving them this title. Okay, it's War and Peace. And obviously there is war and peace within romantic relationships as well. A Suitable Boy gives you the sense that it's just going to be this story, a boy-girl, or in this case, several boys chasing after one girl story. But there's so much more. I don't know what an alternative title would be, but I would say that this title may push people away who might otherwise be interested in a War and Peace type book. And so that's why I'm trying to advocate for it now. If you enjoyed War and Peace, or you enjoy a long, detailed, carefully told, leisurely told book, this is for you. It's not something you're going to feel rushed through. It's something that you're going to enjoy. You're going to keep coming back to. You're going to turn pages. There's just a compulsion, not because there's cliffhangers. There's nothing like that in the text. Shocking things do happen. You're reading along and suddenly something you couldn't possibly have foreseen happens, and you want to read and you want to pursue that further. But the book isn't written in that way, in a series of cliffhangers or bad things happening. It's just like life. Life happens, and sometimes bad things happen. Can't necessarily predict them. So I also recommend this book because it's a way to learn more about a culture you may be less familiar with. I have so many friends who've been to India before. I have Indian friends who, of course, were born in India. And for some time, I've wanted to go to India. I think part of it has been, for me, the idea it's the last country that I would want to go visit for a short amount of time. So a lot of times people only, here in Europe or in France in particular, the only thing they know of the United States is New York. I went to New York for a week, and for them, that is America. Whether they like it or not, and sometimes they'll admit they know they have a very skewed notion of America. So too, I don't think I would like to go to India, let's say just go to Calcutta or go to Bombay for a week and then say, okay, that's it. I've always thought if I was going to go to India, I would take 4 or 6 weeks there. And this book has provided me with a similar literary experience, this just sort of easy glide from the north of the country to the south, from the east to the west, Hindu culture and religion, Muslim culture and religion, and thinking through the way that the dynamics of the family power so much in India, from your trade and your profession, to who you might marry, to where you might live, and how similar this is to the Chinese culture, something I've observed within that side of my family, that's something that's very important as well, that this collective way of thinking is deeply embedded in this 5,000-year-old civilization. Same thing for the Chinese. So, strong recommend from me. Don't be scared of the length. You're going to forget about the length once you get into the story. And if you'd like to support this, if you'd like to pick up a copy of this, I'll have a link to it in the comments below, in the description below. If you'd like to support this work, other reviews like this, there's a Patreon below. Otherwise, the easiest way that you can support my work is to hit like, subscribe, share the video with people who you think might enjoy reading A Suitable Boy. And until next time, enjoy your reading.